Actor, my good friend Rick Richard, who was before Todd Welch the interim coordinator of the Wisconsin Campaign for Liberty, and another real champion of Ron Paul. And during that campaign, Rick and I met and have become fast friends ever since. So Rick, have at it.
Thanks for being here today. I'm going to keep it much shorter and more of a nuts and bolts sort of approach. I'm not going to talk about my campaign so much as all the campaigns and volunteering across the state of Wisconsin. You know, I don't want to preach to the choir, but there's a few of you who aren't involved in a campaign yet or aren't running for office. I guess I'm more speaking to you. Thank you for being here, and it's great to be among friends. Getting involved in a campaign, I've been a campaign, I'm coming from the angle of being a campaign volunteer in the past and now a candidate. In July of 2009, I filed papers to run for State Senate District 15, which is basically Rock County plus Whitewater. It's the cities of Janesville, Beloit, and Whitewater. I live in Janesville. I'm a small business owner, a couple of small children. I'm married for 11 years, born in Wisconsin, and I'm a friend of liberty. I believe I'm running as a Republican, but to show the Republicans that I will cross party lines when I have to, last year I testified against the Republican Real ID law with the Democrats to fight for liberty in Wisconsin. I truly believe if everyone got involved in a campaign or volunteered actively, put some serious time into it, we could put a majority of liberty candidates in political offices in Wisconsin, and I'll explain why a little bit later. Who's already volunteering for a campaign now? Very good. Who is either holds a local position or is running for a local seat? Thank you, Ed. Mayor of Toma. I'm going to talk about why it's important to be a campaign volunteer first. And I also want to say, as Ed found out, that, as Kokesh says, it's okay if you don't do politics, because politics will do you. So for all of you who think that all politicians are corrupt and just don't have nothing to do with it, this is for you too. Last year in Wisconsin, over 400 bills went through the legislature, and of course most every one of them was for bigger government, all except for a couple. And I think you'll agree that, you know, if we just fight for those one or two, or as activists and try to stop one or two, that we're going to leave many dozens, if not hundreds, of big government bills go through. So what I'm saying is, you know, if we don't get involved as people who write the laws, we're going to keep getting the same government we've gotten. And a good example now is what's going to be happening with the fighting for the healthcare freedom in Wisconsin and trying to get an amendment to the Constitution. If that's the way we go, we're going to be spending the next year, 2 years, 3 years trying to get an amendment to this Constitution to keep our freedom of healthcare in Wisconsin for us and our children. And who knows what's going to happen in the meantime, right? There's all laws, proposed laws, micro-stamping our ammunition, creating a sales tax, putting up illegal roadblocks, all sorts of things that go through that we can't fight. So we need to put Friends of Liberty, liberty candidates in office that will write the laws and vote for these laws. And that's really why I decided to run. Don't get me wrong, activism and educating voters are critical, but we need to hold the centers of power, as many folks have said before me. Being a candidate first, I'll talk about that. Running for a local race, school board, city council, town board, county supervisor. You know, these groups often control tens of millions of dollars of your tax money, as you know. And FYI, school boards are often overlooked, but they usually have a bigger budget for our tax money than even city councils and town boards. The incumbents for these local spots often run uncontested. Some elections are held without any filed candidates at all, and a writing candidate wins it. So what I'm saying here is with a little effort, you know, you, a liberty candidate, can win these spots and help control, help keep taxes down, stop the bigger government increase. Now, the real work comes after winning these spots because it's unpaid typically, and it takes a lot of time to properly serve in a local government seat. The deadline for filing for spring elections has passed, of course, but start exploring a local seat now. You know, find out what your local representatives are voting, how are they voting, your county supervisor, what have they been up to? Do you know who your county supervisor is? I didn't know who mine was until a few years ago. The deadline to file for local elections next spring is January 1st, so you have to think ahead. State level candidates need to file papers. Type representatives and state senators need to have signatures in by July 13th this year for this fall's election. And a state representative needs 200 signatures to be considered a candidate to go on the ballot. A few words now about volunteering, on local candidates especially. As you might imagine, they typically have just themselves and a spouse to help on their campaign, put up yard signs, hand out literature, and so on. So one act of campaign volunteer on those elections can make a huge difference. And with just sometimes a dozen votes usually decide these elections, you can literally help a Liberty candidate get into a local seat. Before I go to the impact you can have on a state level race as a volunteer, I want to say a few words about how to choose the candidate for which to volunteer for on their campaign. A lot of questions I get oftentimes: how do we know which candidates can be trusted in office, will vote for Liberty every time? First-time federal candidates, often have very specific U.S. Constitution issues on their website. You can find out from that. If it's still unclear, you can get a chance to ask them. They're out there in public enough, and ask them this question. I think you agree with me. Just simply say, open-ended, what does the U.S. Constitution mean to you? And that answer to that will probably tell you if they're a candidate you can support or not. A new federal candidate may also be endorsed by a group you respect. An existing federal candidate, of course, has made plenty of votes for us to judge their attitude towards our Constitution. Now, a state-level candidate won't usually address the U.S. Constitution on their website. However, you can more easily contact state-level candidates. If you leave a message for them, they should return your call in 2 or 3 days. If you make sure you got the message, if you know you've got the message, they have returned your call, and that says it right there. State candidates are also endorsed by local groups that are well known. One group now we have more formally introduced in Wisconsin is the Republican Liberty Caucus. I think they do a good job of screening candidates. Now here's a screening question I would suggest for state level candidates, reps, and state senators. It is, and I've gotten this question a couple times. It is simply this: what does the 10th Amendment mean to you? What does the 10th Amendment mean to you? And the answer to that will probably give you a good idea about whether you can support that candidate or not. State level candidate incumbents can, of course, have their voting records checked out by you. A favorite site for that of mine is called votesmart.org. It's a very clear, concise record on their votes. How about screening local candidates? Simply ask them, what does Liberty mean to you? Now, does this already sound like too much time for some of you? And I know it's not for a lot of you, but if it is, if there's anybody in here watching more than a few hours of TV a week, or gaming more than a few hours, take your TV to the window and drop it out. That'll free up a lot of your time. Volunteer for state level campaigns, and I've learned a lot just running as a candidate recently. Contrary to the image projected from nice websites and glossy literature, campaigns aren't always a well-oiled machine they appear to be. And I'm saying this for those folks that may have tried to volunteer in the past for a state representative or a state senator and they haven't gotten a call back or whatever. Don't take it personally, don't be offended. These campaigns are run by volunteers. Not every system and database is perfect as we might expect it to be, so you might not have gotten a call back, but it doesn't mean they don't want you on the campaign. Try to keep calling, make sure you go around the campaign, make yourself known. They want to know who you are, who's going to be representing their candidate. Even if you're just dropping off literature, you are the face of that candidate. They want to know who you are. And what kind of impact can one person have on one campaign, the state level race? Just put some numbers together, looked up some past state representative election results, and as you might know, in a non-presidential election year, kind of an off election year, there are only about 20,000 total votes cast for in a state representative race. Many of these races are won by less than 100, 500 votes. You get actively involved in a campaign, put out yard signs, drop off literature, make phone calls. You can be responsible for getting 100 votes without too much difficulty. Now just imagine if you teamed up with 9 of your friends, made it kind of fun, and responsible for 1,000 votes. You could have won 30 elections 4 years ago. Run for office, recruit candidates, or volunteer. Please be as active as you possibly can. Do it for your community, our children, and our state. Thank you.